4, it is.
4:01.
All right, let's call the regular meeting of the Auburn Water District to order. First thing we'll do is review the minutes from last month.
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 19, 2025.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Great, all in favor? Great. Michael?
Sure. So revenues remain slightly over budget, expenses remain under budget. Similar to prior months, operating revenues over budget due to the trade and credit we got from our old loader and the capacity development grant that closed in 2025. Public fire protection revenue is billed quarterly, and the difference there is due to timing. This month we did go live with MediaLink, our new utility billing software, and we're kind of working through the kinks with that. We have our Book 80 and Cycle 3 billings for December done through MediaLink, and those went relatively smoothly. What we're working through now is just course with their reporting. The usage on the stats page in the packet you guys can get is way under what it should be. And so we got to work with NDS, our prior billing service, to try to get information for November. But I think moving forward, now that we have some billings under our belts in December, we'll be able to get some meaningful reports out of MediaLink. Another quirk of the MediaLink reports is that some of the current balances were aged to the 90 and 120 day bucket, just as a quirk of the conversion of the data. So you'll notice those buckets are a little bit higher than normal on the stats page. But once we work through what kind of 4 months of our own billing, that'll flush itself out, and the aging should be more appropriate. There were no debt service payments in November, and cash on hand has remained relatively consistent. Cash of $3.7 million is sufficient to service existing debt and fund operations, but I'm happy to take a stab at any questions anyone has.
Does anyone have questions? None? Okay. Thank you. We're at the point in the agenda where we're opening the floor for public comment.
We're here to discuss old business. What your first point of old business is my property,
Yes.
487
Yep.
Court Street.
Yep.
We
Okay.
can
Good.
wait until then.
Yep, sure. Thanks. Under new business? Mike?
Yep, new business, first item on there, 2026 meeting schedule. Per the district's charter, our water trustee meetings are held on the third Tuesday following the third Wednesday following the third Tuesday of every month. It's always a little confusing. And so I took a look at that for 2026, and I went through the calendar, looked for holidays that would fall in the same week that would be a conflict. I did not see any. So I stuck with the dates as they landed. On the top of that schedule, it lists our current slate of officers: president, treasurer, superintendent, and clerk. Our annual election of officers is in March. Keep that in mind. Again, in December, we have our double meeting, kind of like we have tonight, but the rest is pretty standard. This is something that I'm looking for the board to approve and put on file. We post this on our website so that customers and the public can see this for the year, and also we send this down to the city clerk and it gets posted on the city site as well. So unless there's any concerns or issues with these dates.
Any concerns or issues with these dates? No? Have a motion?
Yeah, I would move that we adopt the 2026 Auburn Water District Trustees meeting schedule as shown in the packet.
Second.
All in favor?
Awesome, thank you. Moving on, 2026 agenda items. I'd like to bring this up for two reasons. One, it's the end of the year. I know we've had a lot of different things that we've discussed throughout the year, from varying from projects to studies that we're doing. If there was anything that we didn't get to this year that a trustee was particularly interested in, I just wanted to give you an avenue of this is how you get things onto our agenda. So, the president of the board actually sets the agenda according to our bylaws. I do check in with the president the week before we send the packets out, make sure I have everything on the agenda that I need to have on there for district business and that the president wants on there. So if you have anything, that's the avenue. If you want something on a future agenda item, talk to the president. We'll work on getting it in there. You know, if there's things that you want to discuss, again, we can start talking about that, throwing those ideas out, so that, you know, next year we make sure we get to them and talk about them in a timely manner. The other thing that I wanted to bring up in this section was, you know, last year we spent quite a bit of time talking about goals, and we actually set some superintendent goals, some organizational goals last year, and I have really appreciated, we haven't really discussed those in the last few months because we have been kind of shorthanded, and but we have continued to work on those goals. So in January, we will have an agenda item to revisit the 2025 goals, go over the progress we made on those, and, you know, make time so that we can discuss and set goals for 2026. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's all I had. There was no handouts on this agenda item. It was just more of a open up the idea. Again, if folks want items forward, communicate with the president, and we'll get them on it.
Great. All right, let's move into old business.
Exactly.
All right, old business. I have 487 Court Street property agreement. At our last trustee meeting, we brought this up. We had drafted a parking agreement for 487 Court Street. We had been discussing, they had made several requests about putting up a fence. A fence had gone up on our property. We had sent them a cease and desist with an order to remove the fence. At the last meeting, the board suspended the order to remove the fence till the end of December, and they authorized me to work with the attorney to draft, revise the parking agreement to include language for the fence. So in your packets is that revised draft. So if you go down to bullet 3, well, we did two things. One, under term, per request of the property owner, the grantee, we made this agreement auto-renewing, so we wouldn't have to like make it a point to have to remember, and then all of a sudden it expired. So we put that auto-renewing. We still have clause on either side to terminate the agreement. And then bullet number 4, fence. This kind of outlines the provisions for having the fence on the district's property. I know there was a lot of comments made when we were kind of throwing out, everybody had some different ideas on what it would say. I tried to get most of those in, and I feel like they got that. So yeah, I do have that. The only other thing that I would want to revise if the board chooses to go this route is we did have a Exhibit A that went along with the parking area agreement. The Exhibit A basically showed the area that was licensed for the parking. I would like to amend this so that if we are going to agree to the fence, that at least the location of the fence is shown on the exhibit, so that if for whatever reason it changes location or gets moved, you know, that wasn't part of what we agreed to, you know. So yeah, that's what I've got there. Yeah.
I have questions for Mike regarding the fence portion of the parking agreement. Regarding the fence portion of the parking agreement, beginning on April 8th, you had ongoing interactions with Jennifer Byron regarding her wanting to build a fence on water district property at 47 Court Street. Would you please share your interactions with her beginning August 8th and continuing?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of back and forth. You know, originally, to be honest, I had no idea where the property line was. She had reached out originally because she'd wanted to put up a fence. You know, she had read her deed and read that her property went to our roadway, and we kind of went back and forth on. I said, well, our roadway is not actually up to the paved surface of the roadway, it's up to the edge of our property line of the roadway. And so we kind of went back and forth on that, and I had said, well, I wouldn't be in favor of any fence on district property. So we kind of left it at that. She had reached back out again like a few weeks later and asked again about that. I had recommended getting the property surveyed, and, you know, if you wanted to put up a fence, follow the city's rules on that. but, you know, just adhere to setbacks and, you know, if you gotta put up a fence, put one up. You know, I know she kept kind of asking, so I actually reached out to a land surveyor to get an estimate for a survey so we could try to figure out where the property line was, because I couldn't find any information on it on my own or through the district. In meeting with him, I actually found where he had already completed a survey, and he had a survey done of it, so he showed that to me. I shared that with Jennifer. We then knew exactly where the property line was. I did share that with the board back in August. So yeah, but I did, you know, several times say, you know, no, I will not agree to a fence, and I can't put in writing that I'll agree to a fence. And you know, I do have several emails where I said that. You know, she did, when you came to the meeting in August, you didn't request permission for a fence. It was now that we had learned that the property line was here, then we then realized, well, where you've been parking is actually on district, so we focused more on getting the agreement to park, and that's where it kind of went from there. But, so yeah, I don't know if that's what you're looking for. Or...
Do you have a follow-up, Bob?
I have more questions.
Okay.
What district infrastructure is underground beneath the fence?
So we have the water main that feeds the Goff Hill tank. There's actually two mains there. So there's two water mains. And then there is the electrical and the signal cables that go to the vault. And then there's also a sewer main. So
Thank you.
that is there as well.
How much of your time do you figure was consumed by these interactions with Jennifer Byron regarding the fence? Ballpark.
Ballpark, probably, you know, between the different emails, meeting with surveyors, talking with the attorneys, you know, 20 to 30 hours, somewhere in there. Different, you know, not all at once. It's been, you know, afternoon here, morning there, meeting there, you know, that type of stuff. Nothing, I don't know, just a real rough guess.
Thank you. How much district money has been spent on legal fees dealing with this fence?
As of the end of last week, we were at like $2,500. But we haven't gotten the bill yet for this revision.
So there's going to be more beyond 2,500. Thank you. Do you have concerns about what types of activity may occur that may adversely affect district property behind this 6-foot fence, 6-foot high fence, stockade type fence?
I mean, I'm not really concerned about the activity behind the fence. I mean, generally you can't, you know, we'd see if a shed went up, you know, you would see that. You know, again, we don't want any permanent structures over our stuff. Obviously, it's kind of harder to keep an eye on if it's behind a fence. But, I mean, I don't have any major concerns with it, but it's never a concern until it's a problem. Like, uh-oh, we gotta dig the water main up right now. You know, then it's gonna be the problem. That'll be the issue. When something happens, when we have to do it right now, you know, that'll be the problem. We ran into a problem today. We had our water main break, and guess what? There was somebody's beautiful tree they had planted 10 years ago was right on top of it, and we had to cut it down. And they weren't happy, and we'll have to deal with that tomorrow. But it was in the way, so it came down.
I have a rather lengthy question on this one. Allowing this fence to stay in place would be precedent setting. There are two houses on Park Avenue that also, Park Avenue north of the 487 location, that also have property, abutting district property, continuing beyond the north end of the fence in question. If those property owners observe the fence staying in place and request a similar continuing fence, giving them access to district property, how would you deal with that? And potentially later in the future, other fence requests in the city.
I mean, you just gotta, I guess we deal with them as they come, you know. I would, you know, try to treat people fairly. I do the same thing I did this time around. I'd say, well, no, we don't agree to a fence, you know. But if you really want the fence, you have to put your request in writing. You know, I can't give permission on district property. I can adhere to the rules that the board adopts. So If the board agrees to allow something, then I'll follow that agreement. If, I just kind of have to manage that and manage requests, direct those to the board and see if there's something we want to take action on. I guess it's just a matter of managing it. It will be harder in the future to say no to somebody if we let somebody else do it. Won't be my decision to make, but it will be harder if somebody else is sitting here saying, hey, you gave them permission to put a fence up, why can't I? That I'm assuming we'd have to kind of do similarly as we did with this one, draft up an agreement and consider it.
And potential similar legal expenses to deal with it. Potential.
Unless we had this format and all we wanted to do was cut and paste the names, as long as it was the same exact deal, we'd have to change the addresses, but yeah, potentially.
What is your recommendation to the trustees here regarding the disposition of this fence?
I mean, I'll stand where I've been with it. I just don't think it's in our best interest to have it. It'll be a problem when it becomes a problem. It's all fine and good now. It's not going to interfere with our day-to-day stuff, but when all of a sudden it's an issue, it's going to be, oh, they're not home. We couldn't get a hold of them. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to remove the fence. That'll be the problem. Dealing with that. But.
And we have agreed to incur those costs if we cannot remove it in time.
You get a shot.
Okay.
Thank you, I'm good.
All right, any other questions?
Want comments?
Sure.
So look, I appreciate where Bob's coming from here. I have a completely different view of this. So if anybody thinks that a governmental, a quasi-governmental entity, the type of expenses that we're talking about here are in any way unusual, they have no idea how government works. This type of stuff goes on all day long in governmental entities. It's the cost of doing business. We have a very large distribution network throughout the city and interact with people all over the city. And I think that, we can have a rigid rule and say you can never do any of these things, but there's something to be said about trying to have good neighborhood relations with people that have these issues. Look, I have bought this same property, right around the corner from where these people live. I go by their house with my dog walking around on around the cistern up there. This fence is sitting, every day of the year, there's a bucket loader 100 yards from this place. If anybody thinks it's going to be an issue removing this fence, it'll take about 2.5 minutes for somebody to fire that thing up, put a strap around this and pull the fence out, because it's not even buried into the ground. So I get it, there's something to be said that it's precedent setting, but it's not a legal precedent. I think you deal with these things individually as they come along. Personally, I don't see any risk to our infrastructure the way this fence is constructed, and I think in the spirit of good relationships with people that we have to deal with, this is a reasonable thing to do.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think they have a unique situation, and my concern is they have a very small lot, and our road goes right by their lot and kind of makes it very difficult for them to even have a home on this lot. I mean, if the house ever got torn down or anything, nobody would ever build there because it doesn't even make sense. So in order, as far as I'm concerned, to be a good neighbor, and it's not going to bother us, I would support the fence the way this is written.
Eric, do you have any comments?
I think the way it's drawn up, I think it protects the board. I think it's making the best situation of what we have.
Any other comments?
I'd kind of like to hear from
Ms. Byron, if you'd like to speak now.
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting. I wasn't certain if we were turn taking. No, I just, a few things. One, I would like to clarify that I didn't put the fence up in protest. I had spoken to Mike and had gotten permission for a temporary fence, which I felt I had described in detail what my plan was, and I didn't differ from that. I never would have spent the money if I had thought that the board was telling me no. I had gotten verbal permission for a temporary fence, so that's what I did. Other than that, just a few things within the agreement itself. I noticed that you have my mailing address as Livermore. I no longer reside there. I reside at 487 Court Street, so that will need to be addressed. It also says the real property on the bullet point 1, real property located at 491 Court Street. That should be 487. I was sitting here wishing I'd had a highlighter so I could find everything when it was my turn. Was there something else I needed to point out? Do you remember?
I don't think so.
Oh, the last thing was Exhibit A, which you already brought up. I wanted to make sure that that was going to be amended because this stated that the fence was within Exhibit A, but it currently isn't. I think that's everything unless you guys have questions for me.
Just to address some of Bob's concerns as well in the future about other people asking for fences, it's obviously a case-by-case basis. And you guys are well within your reach, and the way this is drawn up, you can say no in the future.
To us or to anyone else.
Right, you can also say no to us. And apparently we have 48 hours to take it down. That's well within our doing. I mean, obviously we'd have to take time off from work to do it. But the way the fence is constructed, a bucket loader can pull those panels up within 3 minutes and have plenty of room to do what you guys need to do in the backyard.
Okay, thank you. All right, would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the parking agreement provided in the packet with the noted corrections relative to addresses and with the condition that Appendix A be updated with the fence.
Okay. Second. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? Okay. Thanks.
I didn't hear the word.
Sorry. All right, now you guys have gotten to know each other pretty well. Hopefully things will go smoothly from here on out. Thanks. Water quality update.
All right, water quality updates. Still concerned with the lake elevation. You know, we have continued, the dry weather pattern has continued. It's gotten a little better, but the lake elevation is pretty stagnant, and we're still down about 2.5 to 3 feet in the lake. So it does leave quite a bit of shoreline that's not used to being exposed. It is exposed. It's also concerning because the last couple of years we've benefited from a spring flush, meaning, you know, we've had excess amounts of water in the lake and we've had to open the dam to have to let that out. What we've done is we've let go of a lot of phosphorus that was in the lake. You know, any phosphorus that comes in over the winter or in the spring during the melt will be retained in the lake. So we are watching this closely. Despite that, the water quality is very good. The turbidity is at or below normal averages, so we're happy there. We did have, if you look at the turbidity trend, some significant spikes in November. We had some really strong wind events, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the infrastructure study. But yeah, outside of that, the lake water quality is in good shape.
So there's approximately 13.5 to 14 feet of water above the intake, ballpark?
Ballpark, you're probably at like 15 to 16 feet above the intake right now.
Are we looking at any concern of water issues, availability issues between now and May?
No.
Thank you.
We were supposed to get an inch of rain on Friday. What does that end up equating to in terms of elevation gain in the lake? Do you know off the top of your head?
There's not a real science to that. You know, this time of year, a lot of the ground is now frozen.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get probably more elevation gain with frozen ground than you would if the ground absorbed the water. So there's really no direct correlation. We had a couple of 1-inch storms this fall and the lake elevation went down, you know, a few days after.
Yeah, and another part of that is right now the vegetation is not using up the water that falls, so all of that has increased runoff, which means increased stream flow in the lake. So hopefully we'll get a lot of benefit out of this.
Right.
Like Mike said, a little more than we might have in the spring or fall or summer. But it's not easy to calculate. the
Right.
exact
It's
rise.
supposed to be warm and windy too, which will snow melt on
There's
top
gonna
of
be
it.
snow melt.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? 2026 draft budget update?
Sure. This version's a little bit different than what you have in the packets. I don't know if anyone needs this.
Thank you.
But the changes are minor. I'll just go through what's changed from the last time you guys have seen this. On page 1, the biggest change is in the past we've assumed that the 8% increase was going to be in effect for 2/3 of the year. We talked it over and decided that half of the years is probably a better estimate for when we'd be able to recognize those gains. So that's a change here. Is instead of recognizing 2/3, we're down to a half year of the 8% increase. Also on page 1, payroll has changed. I was missing incentive bonuses in the last version of this, so I added $34K in incentive bonuses to the payroll amount. Vehicle maintenance also changed. It was pulling the incorrect 30,000. 144 is the right amount based on the supporting sheet we have here. So that changed as well on page 1. Public and private fire protections have also gone up by the same amount as the rate increase, because those will be in line with that. Interest payment has been corrected. It was pulling the wrong amount. Health insurance costs increased due to a formula change or formula error that I caught. And the Watershed Commission budget has decreased slightly from what we had previously. It's like a couple $1,000 difference, I think. Nothing too crazy there. And then page 8 with payroll, I added Mike Abbott to payroll and updated the salary amount there to include his salary. But everything else should be what you've seen in the past. And I'm happy to take any questions anyone has.
So on the vehicle maintenance, on this budget right here, you've got it at
Yeah.
30,000, so this is wrong?
That's wrong. Yeah, it's pulling.
So these numbers are all different?
Yeah, that's why this one has the corrected 144 right there, and this is the number that we'll be voting on tonight.
Which is, what's that?
You can grab a copy right there.
That's the new
That's
one.
what I have.
No, not the one in the packet.
Did you
It's
take
been
one of these,
corrected
Bruce?
by one of those.
It's in that one.
This one
Update.
says December 11 too.
Yeah, I know. Sorry,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a slight difference on
That's the
that.
one,
Yeah.
that's,
Okay,
That was earlier than.
Yeah.
okay. The other December 11. I see.
Mike, what's the, given the increase here in the fire protection, what's the process of notifying the seat? Because they're in the,
Yep.
we're building the budget now.
Yep, no, good point. You know, Mike and I met with Phil yesterday morning, and we discussed this. Back in 2019, the water district did a rate increase, and it was above 16%. And a lot of people didn't know this, but there's a formula that the PUC has and that they've adopted that you have to follow to determine what your community's fire protection charge is going to be. So it's not always a straight one-for-one, we're raising our rate 8%. Fire protection may go up 20% to make sure that it's 19% of our total revenue. So I was a little concerned about that because I've actually never run through this formula myself before. So Mike Bailey ran the formula, and then we met with PUC and went over them, and we were relieved to find out that Mike did it exactly right, and we confirmed that 19% of our revenue needs to come from fire protection.
Can't be more than 19%.
Can't be more than 19%. So, and when you run the numbers on that, that's essentially an 8% increase over what we're currently charging. So we're gonna keep that same 19%, and it's just 8% more. So I let Phil know that yesterday.
Okay, good.
I've also had several departments of the city reaching out to me. They're all working on their budgets. You know, the school facilities guy reached out yesterday. Hey, are you having any rate increases? Matter of fact, I am. You know, factor that into your
Well, I
budget.
got a deal for you.
So yeah, that's where usually the communication goes. As soon as we vote on this in January, that's going to be my big push. We're going to start working on everything we need to, the customer notifications that'll go out to every resident and every business, and we'll be working on that.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, update on the facilities assessment?
Yeah, Mike's going to take this one.
Yeah, so, oh, great. Perfect, just, I don't have a cold, I don't know what that's all about. So, if you go to the color map, we've been working with Weston and Sampson to review, basically assess our needs, our spatial needs for our office and operations based on what we have here and all the vehicles, people, equipment, and then they basically took that information and developed some conceptual layouts for our new facility at a property out on Kitty Hawk Avenue by the airport. This is, I believe, a 3.5 acre property, and it's kind of hard to tell looking at it, but this still would put us in a situation where we could barely fit. It's not really, it doesn't really give us much more maneuvering space than we have here in that Court Street. We were concerned with some issues like being able to bring vehicles in here and actually turn into the garage area. Very limited space for material laydown and staging materials and pipes and other equipment. And basically, Mike and I have met with Weston and Sampson about this initial conceptual map, and basically came up with the determination that we probably need something more like a 4.5 to 5 acre lot as the minimum size. If we're going to relocate, have room for everything we have now, have a little more maneuvering room, a little more storage room, and room to expand in the future if that's necessary. So we're now looking at, they're developing a new conceptual layout for a approximately 5 acre lot, and we've also been meeting with the city planning staff to look at other potential available lots within the city that make sense from a spatial standpoint and logistical operation standpoint.
Yeah, I asked Mike yesterday about the layout, and he did say that on a 4.5 to 5 acre lot, which is what is needed by the district, he could take the same layout, building layout, and just take that and basically put that in the 4.5 to 5 acre. They wouldn't have to pay to redo layout of buildings.
Right, the building layout we're actually fairly happy with. It's more that we don't have the maneuvering space around it and the storage space. But you're right, Bob, that this general layout probably won't have to be altered that much.
That'll be good, because if it's getting a new lot, we won't have to go through that again.
Right. So.
Thanks.
And so is where a potential location?
There's some other locations out near the airport on Kitty Hawk, and there's one on, is it Cascades?
Yep.
And there's another property we discussed on Hotel Road. But we're sort of in the early phases of looking to see what's available with the city and just in general.
Good, thank you, Mike.
All set?
This is gonna be a really stupid question, but it won't be the first time I ask a really stupid question. So we own a big parcel of land where our plant is, where our pumping station is. The whole pumping station road and all the woods that are there. Is that all wetlands?
So we don't actually own that anymore. That's now owned by the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission.
Oh, I see that.
And a lot of that land is wetlands.
Is wetland.
Yeah, and the buildable portions of it would be needed for future treatment expansions.
All right.
You know, there is a buildable footprint up there around the existing treatment plant. It's pretty decent size, but just about the right size for a $60 million treatment facility. But not a whole lot more beyond that.
I was thinking more on the, is that Turner Street?
Yep.
Yeah, Turner Street.
Yeah, you don't see it, but if you got on Google Earth and look down, you'll see there's a great big swamp that comes in not far from Turner. It actually goes in between Turner and the plant. So the road into the plant kind of loops around that. So it's not a lot there. That's, you know, solid ground.
But to your point, there would be advantages to having all of our operations centrally located. Right now, we're at quite a distance from our lake staff, so Mike's mentioned before, it's almost two.
And how many acres do we own here if we took the apartment building behind us and all that and reconfigured?
I think if you pull this all together here, it's just shy of 3 acres.
That's
So
all.
we own this lot, we own 2 house lots across, this is actually a city street at the end of this building, we own 2 house lots there that are very small. And then we own, like,
So the White House is owned by us?
the barn is owned by us.
Yeah.
The next White House over is not owned by us, no. We do own a weird triangular piece of land behind the barn that's on the hillside that goes up to EL, but it's a really weird configuration, and it's very steep. Yeah, this lot right here is bigger than what we currently own.
It is?
That lot
Oh,
is,
it
yeah.
is, okay.
Yeah, the other issue here is access. Right, because, you know, we've mentioned this before, but it's very unlikely that when they complete this Court Street study that they're doing, that they'll maintain the parking in front of the building, because it obstructs traffic all the time, and they're very unlikely to allow a left-hand turn coming out of here.
Or straight, go straight.
Or to go
It's gonna
straight.
be right on.
It would be right only. So, I don't think there's space here for what we really want to do, but even if there was, it's going to be very difficult getting in and out of here, especially, you know, I see the dump trucks out here with a trailer on it, and I go and I come back and still trying to get out.
I mean, while this doesn't work on this 3.5 acres, obviously Mike pointed out, you can't really turn a truck and get it in the garage because it's so tight to the property line. But what I really do like about this layout is the amount of accessibility. We can come in from a side road, from the main road. You know, it's easy. You could pull your equipment in over here, so you don't. I mean, the guys are fixing a main break right now. They're going to come back. There's going to be mud and slop on equipment. You're not going to track that in where the public is rolling in. You're going to, you know.
Yeah.
I really like this layout. We just need a little bit more to make it work. But yeah. So.
Right. Anything else? Facilities assessment.
So yeah, Lake Auburn Infrastructure Planning Study. So I sent out to the board the full progress update that we had. I wanted to put it in the packet, but it's like 15 pages, and I mean, you already didn't get the mail, so this wouldn't help. But so I sent it out to you in advance, so hopefully you can see the whole thing. But I did put into the packet a couple of slides that I wanted to touch on. Again, this was just a progress meeting that we had back in November. We're supposed to have one in December, but they haven't scheduled it yet. I'm assuming it'll be coming up pretty soon. So this study is really, what's it really looking at? We're looking at the water quality of Lake Auburn, what it is right now, and what it's been all the way back for what we have data for. We have an incredible amount of data. What's the water quality trend? And what type of alternatives do we need to look at to continue to make sure that this is a sustainable water supply? So the 3 alternatives that we're really focusing on is, you know, would be 1, replacing, extending, or changing the layout of the intake pipe. You know, we've had a lot of issues, and the study actually captured data pertinent to this, that, you know, wind can stir up sediment in the lake, which affects the quality of the water to the point where we could lose our waiver. And if your intake pipe is not in the right position, you have to shut down production of water, otherwise you could violate your waiver. So we're looking at the intake location as one thing. The next alternative that we're looking at is in-lake treatment. Could we do dredging of the basement? Could we do alum dosing stations? Could we do alum treatments in the lake that would make sure that our water supply is more sustainable? And the third alternative that we're looking at is, okay, filtration of the water. Is how does this handle? So the things that we're looking at is, algae blooms in the lake. What does the water quality data say there? Wind-driven turbidity events like we had in November. Recycling of phosphorus in the lake, input of phosphorus in the lake. Which of these scenario best checks all of the boxes so that we have the most sustainable water supply and treatment facilities? One thing that kind of gets eliminated right off the bat is in-lake treatments. They would have little to no effect on the wind-driven events. So we could go do all the in-lake treatments we want. We could dredge the basin. We could have alum dosing stations, and we could put alum in the lake. And if you got a wind event, we're going to be in hot water. So we're not focusing on that one as much, but we are going to vet through the alternatives of it. As far as the intake goes, if you saw the full handout that I had sent out, there's 2 or 3 different options in there, suggestions of, extending the intake pipe potentially up to 3,600 feet or 2,500 feet from the treatment facility towards the deeper end of the lake. Again, you get below the thermocline, you get, into a bigger water column further away from the shore. You wouldn't be susceptible to these changes, and maybe you'd have cooler water temperatures year-round for better treatment. So we're looking at that. And then ultimately filtration. What would we look at for filtration? Would we do membrane filtration? Would we be doing traditional filtration? There's a lot to look at there. One has a lower upfront cost, but has a much higher O&M cost that hits you annually. One is more expensive to build, but it's much cheaper to run. The challenge with Lake Auburn is, I visited a water filtration plant down in Massachusetts that has a very similar water quality to Lake Auburn. I visited that last summer. And their treated water quality, their turbidity leaving their filtration plant was like a 0.6 turbidity, and at the time, our raw water turbidity in Lake Auburn was a 0.4. So the clarity of our water is better than what's coming out of the filter plant in Massachusetts, which makes it very difficult to, how do you put in a filtration plant that runs with very good water 90% of the year, and then when you have the fall turnover, when you have the higher water temperatures and the algae, how do you then manage when the water's not so good? So again, figuring out which treatment method is going to be, a challenging part of this. But that's where this is at. We're going to continue to have check-in meetings, and we're looking to have the draft engineering report in early January. So I do expect that's all still on schedule, but I still haven't had the December check-in. So I'll press them.
In your full narrative, I saw mentioned there's a potential of separate intakes for Lewiston and separate intake for Auburn. I saw that someplace. The potential of 2 intakes.
Yeah, but not separate for the 2 systems.
But not separate for the 2 systems.
They're looking at, well, if you extended your intake pipe out, would that one be independent of your existing intake? So then you would basically have 2 pipes in the lake. Well, the winter months will take from the shallower one closer to the facility. The summer months will take from the one deeper out in that one. That would be something that if we're looking at intakes, would we extend the one we have, or would we run a whole new one, leave the one we have, and then have the 2? Back my first year when I worked for the Auburn Water District, I was the treatment plant manager, and the intake pipe that we had, which is the current intake pipe, had all kinds of algae and built up on the inside of the pipe, and it was sloughing off, and it was plugging the treatment facility. So we had to clean the pipe. And it was a huge exercise to put a temporary intake pipe into the lake to use while we cleaned the existing one. Because we don't have a backup. Something happens to that pipe, we need to pull some strings to get water in. So there could be some benefit to having a backup one. So again, that's the stuff we're looking at.
So a second intake pipe was built out to the deeper portion of the lake. Lewiston would pay 50%, Auburn would pay 50%?
Exactly.
As it stands now.
Right, but one wouldn't be Auburn's, one wouldn't be Lewiston's.
No, but the existing one is
Yes.
Auburn Lewiston,
Yes.
and another one would be Auburn Lewiston.
Exactly,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
fine.
Yep.
Thank
Yep.
you. Yeah.
That's why go ahead.
So, turbidity, so let's say, is the water cleaner 3,600 feet away than it is where it is
Depends
now?
on the time of year.
A big advantage to having a deeper intake is that if there is an event like a turbidity event that's affecting one part of the lake more than the other based on the wind direction, to have those spread apart is helpful. But also, if there is an algal bloom, chances are it would be hard to find a spot at the same approximate depth that wasn't impacted with higher turbidity and algae. But if you can get below the I can't say.
Thermocline.
Thermocline, there you go. You can expect typically, if the lake is not turned over, to have a completely different water quality, clearer, more clear water, so.
It'll be clearer.
Yeah, it
So-
will be isolated from what's going on in the shallow part of the water column.
Yeah.
So, and my understanding is it has to be out there where it's, 50 or 60 feet deep, not back where it's 30 or 40 feet.
So,
it's a ways.
if you have a turbidity event
Right,
caused by high wind,
right.
where do they measure the turbidity? Out there, or do they measure it?
Well, currently, it's what's coming in our pipe. It's,
Oh,
in
that's
our
where it's
intake.
measured?
Yes.
The turbidity is measured where it comes in our pipe?
Right, the real problem is, and this is something the consultant has really pushed on us, like, well, hey, when you have a wind event, you need to get out there and sample it. I said, no, I'm not sending my staff out on Lake Auburn when the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour to go measure the turbidity in the deep part of the lake. We're not going there. And so we've talked about, well, you could, I think if you looked at the full report, you'd see like
it's a
this,
little
they wanted us to
thing,
buy
yeah.
like
A
this
little robot thing, yeah.
$100,000 boat thing to like, yeah, send that out there. I don't think we're going to be doing that as part of this analysis at this time. But, it's
But
very
since you-
difficult to
but
do.
Since you do this, you ought to own one, and it should be
Yeah,
part of your price.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we've gone back and forth on that, and we've held a firm line with safety. We're not the Coast Guard here. We're not we're limiting our boat as just a normal homeowner's pontoon boat, and we're not going out there when the lake's not safe.
Right, but, so turbidity, I didn't know where turbidity was measured.
The intake pipe.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
in the plan.
And so if we put the pipe out deeper, then it would be measured there, there's a good chance we wouldn't need the filtration quite as quickly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so I have a question or comment. I want to make sure I understand this. So these two alternatives, one is some type of in-lake treatment, dredging that whole piece, and then there's the filtration. I might misunderstand this, but I thought that was addressing two distinct issues, meaning that the treatment issues is treating phosphorus, for which filtration does nothing, and the filtration's treating turbidity, which does nothing about phosphorus.
Well, they're kind of intertwined, though. I mean, the higher phosphorus levels can lead to algal blooms, which increases your turbidity and
Sure.
processing issues with it. So then you need the filtration.
Yeah, so I guess my point is, I wasn't quite understanding, I guess, your point that you probably don't need both. I get the point that if you did alum dosing stations or you did in-lake treatment, it filters down, it affects it, but if you stir all that up, you're still going to generate phosphorus in there. But is what they're saying is that we don't need to treat what's in the lake unless it's all stirred up?
No,
No, go for it.
I don't want to jump in front of the other mics. There's a lot of mics here, but I think what all of these approaches have potential to benefit the water quality. And the more you can keep the water quality high coming into the intake, the less you have to treat.
Sure.
Even if you have a filtration plant, if you have to go that route someday, that will help reduce costs of treatment, because you won't have to use the filters as much. So all of those aren't mutually exclusive. I think what we feel about doing just the in-lake treatments would not be a good
Okay, so
right.
Yeah, so I'm not saying we should just do one.
Right.
So what I hear you saying is, at some point, you may have to do both. They may not both have to be done at the same time, but they're addressing different issues, and we need to figure out what our strategy is going to be to do these two types of things, and when we do them and how we do them, and depending on what we do of one or the other may affect your strategy for the other. Okay.
Yeah, I might have misspoken in the very beginning by saying that the in-lake treatment's it's not being removed as an alternative, but what the wind events, the events that we had in November exposed is that that's not your one and done solution.
Right, okay. I'm
So
good.
that's what I should have said.
Yeah, I get it. And then the comment I have is, to your point about the capital cost and the operating cost, and I think this was more for Mike, I think the way we should look at that is that we should run that out for whatever the period of the bonding is going to be to compare the two solutions, right? So we're comparing apples to apples. Just say if it's a 20-year bond, we figure out the capital cost and we project out the operating cost over that period, so we get a good comparison of the life cycle cost, at least for the bond period.
Great.
I was kind of disappointed in this, that I read the 16 pages that you sent online.
This was just a progress update. This is not the final report. This is just.
Better not be.
No, it's not.
We'll get a chance.
I didn't think much of it, to tell you the truth. Did you?
I know it's preliminary.
Okay.
We'll get a chance to run it down.
You're nicer than me.
This is more of a
So check in on time here. We've got another group coming in 9 minutes. So Lake Shore Drive, MPI.
This one's real quick. We just received the 90% design drawings for that project. Mike and I are going to be reviewing those. That's where that's at. The terms and conditions update, we did get those suspended last month. We have internally revised and taken into account all the recommendations of the PUC. We've separated out our fee schedule. We're going to be resubmitting that with a go live of February 1st. So that's on track still. So yeah, that should round out your old business there.
Okay, great. And Mike, run down on the activity report.
Yeah, just real quickly on that. It's in your packet. My apologies. The numbers for the previous month, November, are correct, but I still need to update a lot of the year-to-date numbers. Although the DigSafe numbers are all up to date. Construction. You'll see that construction activity has slowed down this time of year and will continue to be slow. Crews are mostly working on winter maintenance, responding to calls like today and the water main break, which.
Where was that?
It was at on Tyler Street, which is right beside the Washington Street Rotary. It was a.
I saw them out there.
Yeah.
Quite a large excavation going on.
I saw 4 breaks in the narrative here.
Yeah, there's been a few. It was one on Washington Street. This one, just as luck would have it, was right at a bell joint, and the year was stamped on the pipe, 1910. And they actually just let me know that they turned the water back on about 15 minutes ago. So, but it was an all-day endeavor. So, yeah.
So the guarantee had expired on that one?
Yes, we're going to look back.
We're going to be calling tomorrow.
By a week, planned obsolescence.
Just ran out on July 1st. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Mike? Okay, thank you. We're down to the trustee open session. Any general comments from the trustees? Anybody want to make a motion to
I
adjourn?
move we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second?
All right, all in favor? All right.
We're adjourned.